the new self-contained class. They were doing good as well.
Okay.
Evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
Good evening.
Well, did any of you start school this week, or y'all were already in school?
Started
Y'all started
Monday.
this week?
Started Monday.
Started
Let me
Monday.
bet. Some parent called to complain about the bus.
More
How
than
did
the
I know
bus.
that?
Yeah.
The
Well,
bus, the
no, a few
traffic, the car rider line.
bus broke down.
Yeah.
Not enrolled at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was it here in Charlotte? We had, and I don't understand. They arrested what they referred to as parents at Palisades High School. The woman had a gun and a box cutter, and the man had a box cutter. But they listed their address as Rock Hill. Now, Palisades is in the community down 49, right before you get to Lake Wiley, but it's in North Carolina, obviously Mecklenburg County. It's almost within sight of South Carolina. But what are we doing with South Carolina people in school to start with? I bet there's a good backstory behind that one. I hadn't called any of my people yet, but I'll call Lisa probably tomorrow, see what the backstory is on. And how'd they know they had the weapons? I mean, when they came on campus, they arrested them immediately and searched them. So I don't know what that one. Now, last week, somebody shot into the school, shot through the window.
I parked on this side. I just got to speak to Dr. Clark before.
I don't know what that deal was, but I'm sure it wasn't going to be good.
Jimmy, can you mute,
Jimmy
please?
mute.
Jimmy, can you mute, please?
Sorry.
And so, um, somehow a disaster was avoided there. I'm quite sure that there was more to it than they just showed up and, I mean, how would you know they had weapons on them unless you were waiting on them? They were waiting on them. They arrested them immediately. And what are people from Rock Hill doing showing up? And why are you calling them parents? They wouldn't have kids in the district. I don't know what that was about, but it was narrowly avoided. And of course, the tragedy in Minneapolis and the Catholic school up there. But again, I went through um, teaching school law as I normally do. We went, the first thing we do is a crisis plan and check all of our safety and the fire drill, the safety reports, the twice monthly, you know, review all the evacuation. That's the very first thing we do. Y'all know, y'all have to go step through that with me. Um, but again, they reported just a few minutes ago, I wanted to see it, that the reason that he had to shoot through the windows and thankfully only killed 2 and wounded 15 was that they had the doors locked and barricaded where he couldn't get in. It's tragic that 17 were hit and 2 children were killed. But it could be that one would have been a lot worse if if they'd had the back door propped open like they did in Texas. The lunchroom ladies had a fan in the door and propped it open. That's how those, and that story in Uvalde is they had been writing on the twice monthly safety report for years that the doorknob was broke on that classroom and nobody bothered to go and fix it or respond to it. And so, the gunman went down the hall till he found the door that would open, went in and killed every kid in the room, 26 kids in that room. I mean, these are all lessons for us to remember about schools. I wish we didn't have to, but we do. All right. Well, I'm looking forward. So next weekend I will be there. I wanted to remind, and I'm remiss for not reminding you last week. We've been moved to the Walnut Building, which is in the front of the campus. I will have better directions by the time, post them in our shell, but I'll also send you a message through the email from class on specific directions. Hopefully they've gotten something about I have to have a certificate with me at all times and can't leave the room, or I don't know. But anyway, we're no longer going to be in Spruce. We're going to move to the front. The Walnut building is in the front. So I did put that on. Let me share my screen. I did put that in our shell. I was going through the roster. Classroom Dogwood. No, we're going to be in Dogwood now. Okay, we're going to be in Dogwood 207. We were in Walnut. Now been moved to Dogwood. We're going to be in 207. All right, so that's it. So yeah, it's right there next to the main entrance, the building just to the left of it. So we'll park in that front parking lot. So yeah, we're in Dogwood 207. I think we were in that building one time before back in the day, but I don't remember exactly. I think we were in that one at one point. But I remember we used to be in the big building there up on the second floor. Come in and go up. But I guess we're in Dogwood next door. So make sure you see that. We will not be in the back in Spruce, nor I think we were in Walnut maybe this summer. Now we're in Dogwood. We're going to finish up in Dogwood. All right. Anybody have anything else for the good of the group that I've not covered tonight? Taurus, are you going to do chapter 1 tonight or chapters 1 through 3?
Chapters 1 through 3.
All right. I'm going to stop my share. And let you share your screen, and I'll turn my camera off since that seems to help. There we go.
Okay, I had chapters 1 through 3. Sorry. I'm trying to move your faces off the screen so I can see. Okay, so Planning Educational Facilities by Glenn Earthman, what educators need to know. I had chapters 1 through 3. And so for chapter 1, I'll be talking about organization and policy planning. In chapter 2, I'll be talking about planning considerations. And in chapter 3, I'll be talking about planning in public schools. So in chapter 1, with organization and policy planning, it focused on the fact that structure is needed for any organization to function properly. Organizational charts must be located in the school board policies. Every school system is considered a bureaucracy, meaning the decisions are made by the state. The specialization is the key component that allows employers to become experts in one area, but not all. There are 3 types of school systems. The large school systems have the greater demand for school buildings, has a large division, which is usually run by the assistant superintendent and broken down into groups and sections that carries out the facility planning. And then you also have the medium-sized school systems, which have at least 2,000 students, but no more than 7,500. In the medium-sized school systems, they recruit educational consultants to assist with facility planning. And then with the medium-sized school systems, the office is on the director level, not the superintendent level. And then you have your smaller school systems, These are some points for them. Problems with funding to build modern and efficient facilities. Also in the small school systems, capital improvements are hard to obtain without outside assistance. And the superintendent must seek consultants for the needs of the district when you're talking about a small school system. And then when you look at chapter 2, without planning, nothing is accomplished. Without planning, nothing is accomplished. So the purposes of organizational planning, why do we do this? What is the purpose of it? So it is to, I am so sorry, I'm clicking buttons too fast and move some things out my way. Purposes of organizational planning is to develop and approve goals, to allocate and use available resources efficiently, to obtain staff cooperation, input into goal efforts. So when you start the planning part of it, you always have to have the goals. What is the purpose when you start in the planning stage? And now it's frozen. Okay, here we go. The elements that govern the type of planning in a school system. So you just kind of don't do willy-nilly. You have to, has to be organized. And so the purpose of planning is, these are the 3 elements that govern the type of planning. So one is purpose of planning. For an example, the adoption of textbooks and school staffing. So the committee will have to meet and you got to talk about what kind of textbooks, what kind of staffing do we need. Then there's a level of planning. For an example, teacher planning activities for the semester, principal plans educational and social activities, and then time frame of planning. For an example, decide the time based on the need of today. Is it going to happen next month, next year, or 10 years from now? So when we think about in the school system, and we're all in the school system, these are the different levels of planning that can take place within a school system. And typically when you talk about adoption of textbooks and school staffing, that involves involvement with teachers and some of our curriculum and instruction committees to talk about what type of textbooks. Some may need to go away because they're no longer going to be of use. And then do we need this type of adoption of textbooks based upon looking at our school staffing? And then there is the planning. Why is there a need for planning in school buildings? One, to identifying the type of educational program that is to be carried on in the building. So you have to meet, you have to look at the data, and you have to identify what do we want to carry out as a district within that building, and the number of school children to be housed in that building. The 3 types of planning processes. So when the team gets together, what types of planning? So it could be problem solving. That means the quick activities that are going on within the school building, which won't take long. But then there's also operational, 1-year activities. And that is utilized the most in the school districts. It's the operational. So you usually plan those out, the operational activities. Then there's strategic. Those are those long range activities that support changes in the organization. So it could be a 5-year plan. It could be a 3-year plan that you're looking at in your planning process. So every district should have a strategic plan, every district. So this is the planning process for a school system. This is like the kind of like the shell. I'm sorry, the shell. So you have the planning. I'm so sorry, things are jumping up on the screen. I don't know if y'all can see them, but I see them on my end. And it's blocking my words, but hold on. Planning to plan. What is the task? Who is to be involved? You need your community. You need to define what the mission is going to be. What is the internal input? You have to define the goal and then identify what is the end product. What are we looking for? What do we want to see? Identification of strategies for accomplishing the goal, selection of appropriate strategy, and implementation of program school system, and that's that long range plan. And then at the very end, you want to make sure that you go back and you evaluate the program. Okay. And then in chapter 3, planning in public schools, planning, designing, constructing capital projects. Steps school systems take for building projects. Step 1, they have to organize their staff, determine the size of the student population. And in step 2, define the educational program, develop a funding package, acquire a site for the new building. Then you have to advertise, and then you have to call in the people, and they'll bid on the different parts of the project. Step 4, you have to make sure that you are monitoring the construction phase of the project. Then you have to orient the staff to the building. And then in step 5, evaluate the building and planning processes. A major capital project includes a long-range plan. You have to have the description of the community, description of the educational plan. How is this going to affect our students, student achievement, all of this. And then in step 3, what are the student projections? So you're just not building and planning for now. You have to project out 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And then the facility evaluation. And what are the capital needs and the financial plan? And this is all what Earthman had to say in chapters 1 through 3 when it comes to the planning educational facilities. I would like to thank you for listening to chapters 1 through 3 tonight. And this is a snippet of Hope County Schools building project. I have been a part of their building project. So mostly everything that I presented in chapters 1 through 3, I actually have been a part of that process. So this is the beginning. You see the superintendent, and these are the folks at the beginning of our add-on to our high school. And at the bottom, it says coming soon, Hope County High School. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. First question. How much state money comes for capital for buildings and grounds to school districts? What is that allotment? Somebody, anybody?
What did you say, Dr. Lamb?
What is the state allotment for capital to build and maintain buildings? What is the state allotment?
I didn't think there was a state allotment. I thought it was all
That is
based on the
correct.
county,
That's a trick question there.
county commissioners.
Yeah. So that's your first problem right there. In 1966, what did the General Assembly in North Carolina stop doing in 1966 in order to try to slow down integration of schools? You know that I've told you this before. Brown versus Board of Education was passed. It was decided by the Supreme Court in what year? Brown versus Board that said separate was no longer equal. The Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896 was overturned by the Supreme Court of the United States in 1954. It said separate's no longer equal. That you had to integrate schools with all deliberate haste. And what happened for the next 11 years? Nothing. Not a thing. What happened in 1965? Civil Rights Act passed. And so schools started having to integrate when? 1966. I was in school. I remember. So all of the folks, and especially in the South, that did not want to integrate schools, had this brilliant idea. You got this black school over here, that's 300 kids. You got this white school. They knew the parents wouldn't want to, to move them. So the idea was we'd need to build one new school that would hold them all. Otherwise, we'd have to get into busing. And so, what did the General Assembly in North and South Carolina do in 1966? They said no more capital funding. We're out. And for the express purpose of slowing down integration of schools. You may make us integrate, but you can't make us pay for it. And that's what they said. They said the quiet part out loud, kind of like the crowd that's in now. And so that's what the Leandro case was about. Trying to change the state funding formula. And they said, no, we'll give you some capital money from the lottery. Of course, it never showed up. So there is no allotment. There might be a little pork barrel money from the lottery to do capital, but it's few and far between. And it's just somebody can give it. Most of it's just been wasted or stolen. What was it? They built that cafeteria up in Surrey County and it stayed open 1 year. They couldn't figure out how to run 2 lunch shifts where they didn't have 300 kids in the whole high school. Let me say that again. They didn't have 300 kids in the whole high school, and they couldn't figure out a way to run 2 lunch shifts. So they said we didn't have a place for all 300 of them to eat at one time. And of course, they built a new cafeteria, and immediately they had to close the whole school because the enrollment wasn't enough to keep the school open. It was just stolen. That money was just stolen. They built the NASCAR place up here in Mooresville. Why are you building training grounds for a private business? There's no jobs in that. So what little money has been involved with the lottery that was supposed to help with schools' capital needs, it never materialized. So why is that important? First thing Carr said is you got to go outside sources to get funding for schools. So outside sources means who allots capital money to schools to start with. Lauren just gave us the answer a minute ago. The county commissioners. So when you have a budget, you start in February, the superintendent, you send out all the paperwork to the principals for them to talk to teachers and send back their request list and everything you go through. And then the board meets and does all that through June and July, usually before they come up with a budget, June or July. Can the school board fund that budget? Do they have money to do that? They don't have a penny. School board does not have a penny. School boards in North and South Carolina are unempowered. They have no money. They can't levy taxes. Who is the tax levying authority in Cumberland County? That would be the county commissioners, or in Alamance, or that's who can get money. All right. Now, do they have enough money to build a school? No. If we wanted to build that new high school that Cara showed us there, if we wanted to build that new high school, is there money in the budget to build a new high school from tax revenue? That would be no. So what do you have when you talk about going? This is where we're going. What Cara's told us, you got to go outside. When we talk about going outside, we're not talking about going to a private business. What we're talking about is a bond referendum. All right. Then the school district decide that they want to put a bond referendum on the ballot for voters. Bond referendums have to be passed by a majority vote of the local voters. Can the school district put that bond proposal on the ballot? No. Who says that referendum can go on the ballot? Who makes that decision? That would be your county commissioners. Why? Why do they get to make that decision? Because they're going to have to either raise property taxes or they're going to have to raise local sale taxes. Otherwise, the state won't allow the bond package to be put onto the ballot because you have no way to pay that money back. So a bond is basically you're borrowing the money from the state. But they've got to, and your county commissioners are doing that. But they've got to be sure that there is some way that revenue can be generated to pay that money back. That a bond is not free money. Your district has to pay it back. It's a loan from the state. That's what a bond is. It's a loan. And the county commissioners have to agree to add another 0.5 cent sales. Usually it's another 0.5 cent sales tax. Because they've learned when you tell people they're going to raise their property tax, they'll vote you out. But if you tell them we'll charge all the visitors and all the tourists that are coming through 0.5 cent more, they don't care about that or any more. And so when we talk about you have to go outside to bring in revenue for capital to build a new building, or yes, you must go. You must get the county commissioners must approve it. They must have a plan. They present that to the state. The state says, yes, you can let the bond, and we'll put it on the ballot for the voters come November. That's how that works. But you can't just say we're going to let a bond, because bond is not free. It is a loan. It is not a gift. It is not a gift. Now, what schools are asked to do generally is come up with a list of priority items that will fund the bond. Have any of you ever seen one of those priority lists? Have you ever been asked to participate in that? I mean, voters want to know what it's going to pay for. Have you seen those signs outside of polling places? Vote yes for the bond. This is what your tax dollars will buy. All right. Is that priority list a binding contract?
I don't think it is.
It is not. It's a complete fabrication, generally intended to be deceptive and just outright lie to people. Why do you think we're having so much trouble getting bonds passed now? Because we've lied to people for years and just blatantly lied to people for years. And people have finally gotten where I don't care, I'm not going to do it. But it's for the kids. Yeah, but these people are lying to us. This speaks to our ethical behavior as school administrators. The first time I was a lowly assistant principal, the first time the bond package came in a little poor district and I was in, and I looked at it and I said, I'm not even the smartest fellow in this conversation, but there's no way in hell you can fund all this stuff with this much money. They were going to build a high school, completely renovate a brand new one, renovate 2 more, build 4 middle schools. No, I'm wrong. 2 middle schools and 4 elementaries. 1 high school, 2 middles, 4 elementaries. So that's how many? Seven new schools, and renovate the other 2 high schools to get them up supposedly to the same standard as the new one that they were building. At the end of the day, they built the new high school and ran out of money before they got the other 2 renovated. Never built a school, not another school. Just completely lied to people about what they would get. Why did we do that? Why did we tell people 2 middle schools, 4 elementaries all over the county? What were they trying to do?
Get
Get
people to
people to
agree.
vote. It'll be something in our neighborhood. We'll get something for our kids. Now, in today's dollars, this is going to sound really stupid, but even in 1985 dollars, they were going to do all that, build a whole new high school, 2 middle schools, 4 elementaries, and renovate 2 existing high schools for $40 million. I mean, y'all aren't old enough to remember 1985 dollars, but I'm telling you, what they proposed at that time would have cost quarter of $1 billion. Would have cost about 225 million, $250 million. Is what they were proposing back then. Uh, I mean, the high school at that time cost $40 million. And middle schools would have probably cost 30. So that's $100,000 right there. And 4 elementaries would have cost 25 in those time dollars, even back then. So that's what I'm talking about. That's 200,000 plus all the other, I estimated, because I was taking a finance class at the time, taking doctoral finance at the time, and I estimated that the actual out the door cost would be 200, but by the time the cost overruns other issues, that it would be in the $225,000. And they told people for $40 million they could have all of that for $40 million to get them to vote, knowing that they would build one high school with it. But everybody else in the county wouldn't have voted for it. What was that a deception? Absolutely. Was it intentional? Well, of course it was. Now, fast forward 30 years later, my wife's over at the IB school at Davidson. It's in an old building. It's so bad they condemned it. They eventually moved off and left it, but condemned it. They couldn't serve meals there. And the first thing they would do every time there was a bomb, they'd come running up there and they put, a new middle school in Davidson, a new IB school, #1 on the priority list. Every time they had a bomb, they'd go up there and they'd bring the cameras in and film how bad it was, and facilities. They eventually moved off from the building. They never, the 15 years exactly that my wife was there were 9 bonds passed and not one penny was spent on that building. Not one. Why do you think the public distrusts us? Now, here's the problem. School people go along with this, but at the end of the day, who really says what the priority is once you secure that bond? Is it the school board? Is it the superintendent? Or is it the county commissioners? Since it's technically their money, who actually sets the agenda for the building program once the bond is secured? That would be the county commission. Now, that's a hard pill to swallow as an educational professional, that you have this bunch of local politicians that, can't get out of their own way, that tell you what to do and not to do. You're learning how to do it the right way. But the problem is the governance pieces of, we've found every village idiot that we could find to get on the county commissioners, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, they are the very people who decide what the priority is, not that list that the school district made up and we put on posters and told the voters and told the parents that we were going to do. It's the county commissioners make their own secret agenda of what will be built and what won't be built. Now they make it public, but how they devise it is done behind closed doors. There's no public meetings on that. You've got to understand that. You might have great ideas. You might see that this is the worst need that we've got in our district. You don't have a dog in the fight, though. You've got to understand how the funding works. You've got to understand the historical part of it and who is actually in control of capital funding in your district. It is not the state, it is not the county, it is not the school board, it is not the superintendent, it is the county commissioners, period. You must understand that. Now, obtaining the site is where the first steal starts. The politicking on that. A lot of times we create problems for the new facility that we won't ever overcome based on the site location because somebody got rich selling the site. We don't pick the best places to put schools. We pick the places where people are going to sell them, can make the money, or the people that know where they're going to come or can convince them. So the new high school, there was a new high school in the district, and the local postmaster who didn't have two nickels work, to get to rub together, went out and bought up, I want to say 17 different parcels, 11 or 17 different parcels, and put together this big parcel of land. Now, he didn't have the money to buy one of the parcels much, so I'll say 11 parcels. But lo and behold, next thing you know, the county commissioners purchased that newly put together parcel of land from him to build a new high school on it. Tax records indicate that nearly 186 acres of land, nearly 200 acres, that he had about 175,000, a little less than $1,000 an acre in, about $175,000. He sold it to the school board for $6 million. Now, it became public, when the public found out, one of the county commissioners and one of the school board members were business partners. It come to find out that they were the people who backed the money to the postmaster to buy the property up and got the right votes. And of course, John got voted out, and Babe retired. Uh, you know, but they made one last big score, nearly $6 million, about $5.5 million. Time they gave the postman probably a little bit. He didn't get much. They made about a $5.5 million score, and out the door they both went and rode off into the sunset. That was their golden parachute for their public service, was a $5.5 million gift out the door. Those are the kinds of things that go on around this. This is the environment that you're in, and so I guess my point in telling this long-winded story is you're trying to do it for the right reasons. Other people just see it as a way to raise money or to get money, and that many times is the conflict. We need to build this here. That's a really bad site. We won't have the right places. We won't have the ball fields. We won't be able to do what we need to do. No, we got to buy this site. You need to hold firm. You need to learn these things, and you need to hold firm, and let the politicians do what they do. But uh, the notion of safety and other issues, you need to, and educational use, and having the right facilities, you need to hang on to those ideals. I think I've told you the story about middle school down in Siler City, below Siler City. I went to assess for safety, but because of the way the layout of the property that they had bought, um, their driveway coming off the main road was a backwards P, and the main building, and just as soon as you got past it to the curb, there was the playground out front. And I pointed out to the people that built this nice facility, you've made the building impregnable. It's really safe, but the whole idea was to safeguard the kids, not the building. You got the building here, but because of the layout, how the terrain was, they had to put the playground out front with no way. I could drive within 10 feet of the kids on the playground. I could shot every one of them. I could melt the barrel out of my gun. They thought the idea was to make the building safe. No, the idea is to make the kids safe. And because the way that the property lays there, we could pull it up on Google and I could show you. They couldn't put the playground in back where they could fence it. They had it out in front where it's right there at the parking lot. But somebody got rich, I'm sure. But there's no way to fix that. There's no way to fix that. But that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. One of the other things that I want to point out that Carr's talked about that I've been involved with is construction management firm. From the superintendent's perspective, those people are a big threat and a big risk, because understanding their job is not to provide a safe and educationally sound facility. Their job is to make money. and they will allow corners to be cut and put people at safety risks. And you really must, you got to monitor the monitor, is what I'm saying. Is you can't just hire them and think that they're going to be okay. Um, I was principal in a district where we had CCC was the construction firm, and they were supposed to build a new wing on and then do interior demolition, which is very expensive. They were buttoning the new extension up against the old building, and once they got it built and dried in, they were going to come inside and demo that wall that went from our existing building into the new building. And as soon as nobody was looking, they just brought a dozer in and tore the side of our building off and put plastic up in the wintertime when we nearly froze to death. But it saved them millions of dollars doing internal demolition. So you got to watch them. You can't just hire. Don't think you can hire a construction management firm and your troubles will go away, because you'll be held accountable for the decisions that they make. It's another one of those things legally. You can delegate the activity, but not the authority and responsibility. That still comes back to you. So they're a double-edged sword. That's my notion on there. I think that pretty much covers all of those kinds of things. I think our buildings are built with safety and security in mind more than they were in the past. But even as my wife pointed out at dinner tonight, if somebody props the door open, all of your plans go right out the window. And so we need to make sure that we understand that there's nothing perfect, but we're trying to make facilities at the end of the day that serve our kids best. That's our goal as superintendent and as educational professionals. Understanding that everybody else that you work with sees it as political leverage, political power, a way to get money. They don't see any of the things that we see. And so it's our job to be well versed in these things and try our best as best we can to educate these folks that we're dealing with about what we need in buildings and what kids need and what we should do. But again, it's going to be difficult because they see it as a way to get money, not a way to provide an equitable facility for a child. All right. Anybody else have anything else that we need to cover tonight? All right, so this is Labor Day weekend. I will see you all next weekend. And again, we're going to be in Dogwood, room 207. I've got it right here. I've got a little map when we get there. I'm, you know, y'all are really missing out not having class with me in Charlotte. I do craft. I bring in coffee and juice, pastries. We have biscuits. We had this past weekend. We had Jason's Deli for lunch. We should show out. We just show out because we have our own building in Charlotte. We have a big time in Charlotte, but obviously we can't do that there. They act like if you bring a drink in, you burn the flag. They don't seem to have any sense of humor. I don't know what went on this summer, but it seemed like it didn't go well, whatever it was. So I think we're being punished for some reason. Uh, I hate I wasn't there because I know I would have been right in the middle of it. They've been mad at me. But yeah, so whatever happened, we're now in Dogwood. All right. Carson did a great job tonight. I thank you as always. I will see y'all Saturday week, I guess. I'll see y'all in beautiful Goldsboro. So everybody have a good holiday and a good week. I'll see you next weekend.
Okay, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.